Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Reckless Paradise podcast. I am your host, Dystro, and tonight's episode is a breakdown episode, but this time is of recent memory stuff. Um, in in spite of Foo Fighters coming out with a new album, I think it was only appropriate to do my due diligence and break down the newest Foo Fighters album. It is your favorite toy. Yes, it is. The 12th studio album from the Foo Fighters after But Here We Are from 3 years later, or 3 years prior. Um, a lot of people have been trashing it kind of online. Some people say it's not really good, it's not really Foo Fighters and all that stuff, but then there's other people that say, like, it is kind of like Foo Fighters, but you gotta think about it this way, though. They did it in Dave's garage, and the last time we had something like that, of that ilk, was Wasted Light in 2012. So it's kind of like going back to old school kind of roots a little bit. Um, but, let's kind of get cracking on with this and dive right on into it, shall we? So, the first song of the album is Caught in the Echo. Um, and I gotta say, it's like, with that being the opener, I think it was, to me at least, I think it was like one of those things where it's Foo Fighters and they're bringing that energy, and they've always been known to bring that energy to everything that they do. Um, so this was a this was the third single from the studio album, but it's the first song on the album. Um, and it's like there was promotion for the release that was like 20 personally burned CD singles, which featured individual hand drawn artwork by Dave Grohl and his daughter Harper, were hidden in various locations, including various indie record stores, grocery stores, bookshops, and pharmacies. I think that's actually kind of cool. Um, and I can think about, when you hear, Con the Echo, it's like sometimes when you think about it, you gotta think about, various other, aspects of it. Um, like some of the lyrics say, this is just a test of a broken broadcast system. Consider this an evaluation of my hallucinations. So it could be somebody, like caught in like a loop or something. And I think that's just that because, it's a mental trap of indecision and being stuck in a repetitive thought patterns where the echo represents the feedback loop of one's own mind. So like, basically it's kind of trapped in your thoughts. We all do that as individuals. Like, I mean, let's be honest here. Like when you're stuck in that like not state of mind, but just state of, I guess, state of heart, if you will. Um, it does get kind of scary when you get caught up in your own mind because there's a lot of indecisions about a lot of people. Um, I mean, I give this song a 9 out of 10. I mean, it's a good start. The good opener, good closer, like I said, like I would say. But everything in between is like, sometimes it kind of be hit or miss, but I give it a 9 just to, kind of get the train on the track. Let's just say that. Quotes of Peter Griffin and Quagmire, train on the water, boat on the track, you know what I'm saying? So, on to song number two called Of All People. Um, this one is basically a, it's like basically like a survivor's guilt, which, in the emotional conflict of seeing someone survive when others did not, bending disbelief, grief, and unresolved trauma. So this was a Dave Grohl like kind of specialty, I would say. Um, and he wrote this after encountering a drug dealer from the 1990s who had supplied heroin to people in his circle, like uh, probably most notably probably Kurt Cobain, of all people. Um, Despite the chaos caused, this person was alive, healthy, and sober, while many others had died from these same circumstances. Roll described feeling both happiness and devastation, a conflicted mix of relief and anger, which he later identified as a form of survivor's guilt. I mean, and like he talking about survivor's guilt, it's always that it's always that catch 22 effect where it's like, like if you always put yourself in their shoes, like, like why was it him, not me? A lot of people kind of do that, kind of like be like, like I don't deserve to live, I deserve to die, sort of thing. And there's always somebody out there that loves you. They all love you. Just never try to put yourself through that. Because at the end of the day, it's like you're alive and healthy and sober. To live another day and tell the tale of like a heroic sacrifice or a heroic death, sort of thing. Um, as the term of the song, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. After Calm the Echo, it kind of like cooled down a little bit. And I thought maybe it would like kind of pick up a little bit, maybe a little bit more. But I was sadly mistaken. Which I mean, I don't think it was not a bad thing. It's like, I think it's just like some artists, not all of them, but some artists, they do that where it's just like I always call it a roller coaster effect. Where you start off high and then you kind of like dip down a little bit, kind of keep it a little bit, but then you go back up high and then go back down low, go back high, go back low. And it's like case in point with Pink Floyd when we did some of the breakdown stuff for Pink Floyd on the podcast before, and I've always said it like it's a roller coaster effect. And then it always ties itself back together at the end of the day. Kind of just being like, like it comes full circle. So yeah, 7.5 out of 10. It's not the best, but like never, not every song is going to be a banger hit. Um, so keep that in mind. Um, so now on to song number three. We are at Window. This one was an interesting one. Um, so Window portrays a emotional journey from numbness and collapse to unexpected light and human connection, symbolized by a window cleaner bringing sunlight into the narrator's life. And it actually has a three-act like emotional structure, if you want to call it that. So it's like in Act 1, the narrator experiences internal turmoil depicted as a storm with thunder in the clouds and being dancing in the wind. This represents emotional distress and um, anxiety, anticipatory anxiety, culminating in numbness expressed by the line, lately I don't hear a sound. But then Act 2 depicts collapse and self-assure self-awareness, like self-assuredness. Um, the narrator's body and mind weaken, described vividly as "I'm a puddle on the ground," symbolizing burnout and a loss of form or energy. This stage emphasizes the depth of emotional um, exhaustion for any external intervention occurs. And then Act 3 introduces a turning point. A stranger, a window cleaner, appears and lets in the sun. This figure represents unexpected human connection and the arrival of hope or light, breaking the narrator's cycle of heaviness and isolation. The imagery of the window instantly conveys renewal, vulnerability, and the subtle ways life can introduce joy. Which that's also true. That is all true. In today's world, like that one person or those people can bring light into your life and and make your life, mean something. Like I've always been the advocate of, like, letting people get to know you, and you get to know those people, because at the end of the day, it's like those people can be your friends, or be, a loved one, or a lover, which you know I've always kind of been like that. Like, I've always tried to make acquaintances or friends, or cohorts or whatever. And I've always been that person. I've always been that kind of person. Um, but as terms of the overall grade for that song, I give it a 7.5 out of 10 too. It's kind of like I was saying, the roller coaster effect thing. It's like, keeps it kind of mellow a little bit, but then the next one kind of brings it up high, and the next one that I'm going to be talking about that brings it up high is Your Favorite Toy. Um, Your Favorite Toy. It's it sounds very grungy esque. Um, and I really don't know why that it is like that. Um, it's it I don't know why it did it like that, but it's like it just kind of made it not, I guess, replayable in that retrospect. Um, but so this is what the Your Favorite Toy actually means. The song Your Favorite Toy by Foo Fighters serves as a potent exploration of the complexities of growing up and the bittersweet nature of leaving childhood behind. The lyrics, delivered with a manic energy, no fucking kidding, suggest that the band's frontman, Dave, has been genuinely unsettled by whatever he's working through in those therapy sessions. The song's title track, Your Favorite Toy, is a biting, high energy critique of vanity and the disposable nature of modern life. It sounds almost cuddly on paper, but in practice, it's a high octane sermon on the speed of with which today's treasures become tomorrow's landfill. That's a good way of putting it. The toy of the title is a metaphor for sudden loss, that queasy moment when something or someone you assumed would last forever is abruptly relegated to the thrift store of late. The song's protagonist grapples with the realization that what was once a source of comfort and joy is now gone, leaving them to comfort the harshness of reality. The repeated question is the repeated question, is the pressure hard enough if the treasure's not enough? Underscores the internal conflict between the desire of maternal success and the longing for emotional fulfillment. Musically, the Foo Fighters infused the track with their signature blend of I almost said chaotic, energetic rock and introspective lyrics, creating a dynamic tension that mirrors the emotional turmoil of the lyrics. Ultimately, Your Favorite Toy is a potent exploration of the complexities of, growing up and leaving the bittersweet nature of leaving childhood behind. Um, I mean, well said. It's very well said. It is very energetic. It is very energetic. Um, and I kind of agree with that. Like, it says it's a biting, high energy critique of vanity and the disposable nature of modern life. I mean, that's kind of true. And like it says, the toy in the title is a metaphor for sudden loss. That queasy moment when something or someone you assumed would last forever is abruptly relegated to the thrift store of late. Or thrift store of fate. I said late. Fate. Um, I mean, well, very well said. Um, so, like I was saying about, kind of getting up high, I gave this song a 9 out of 10. Um, which I would have given it a 10 out of 10, but it's been kind of overplayed for me a little bit. Because I hear it on the radio a lot. And it doesn't help when you hear it on the radio a lot. um, and I love that it just says, you know, abruptly relegated to the thrift store of fate. So it's kind of like fate is in their hands, like you think like something's gonna last forever, but then it's like psych, and it kind of just goes nope. Um, yeah, 9 out of 10. I mean, that's a good number. That's a good score for that song too. Because I know that's been very highly um, very highly marketed on that. Since it is the title track. So, going to number 5, If You Only Knew. Yeah, and no, it's not the Shinedown song, which, maybe one day we will, or I will, do a Shinedown breakdown. That'd be actually kind of interesting because the one that I want to talk about is the one from like 2008, 2009, Sound of Madness. Um, yeah, maybe that'll be a little feather in the cap for next time. So, going to If You Only Knew by Foo Fighters. Um, so the song If You Only Knew by the Foo is a deeply emotional piece that explores the theme of wanting to be understood. True. The lyrics convey a sense of longing and frustration as the narrator seeks to connect with someone who, despite being close, cannot fully grasp their feelings. The song's structure follows a three-act emotional arc, starting with the recognition of a recurring pattern, intensifying through vivid metaphors of entrapment and decay, and ending with a vulnerable plea for help. The central conflict is the narrator's need to be understood versus their sense that their relationship is stuck in a same old story that they can't escape. The song's wordplay is compact and purposeful, compressing complex dynamics into short, repeatable phrases that feel like the narrator's internal mantras. The rhyme schemes and sound patterns reinforce this sense of looping, unresolved tension, making the hook feel like an obsession rather than just a slogan. Overall, If You Only Knew is a strong example of how direct rock lyrics can still be structurally and psychologically sophisticated, which that's also true. It is very very true. I gave this song an 8 out of 10. It is still kind of keeping with that, kind of peaking in high, going high, like that. Like I was saying, um, I didn't think about it as an emotional arc. Um, when I had heard, some of the lyrics and all that stuff, but when it said, kind of compressing the complex dynamics into short, repeatable phrases that feel like internal mantras, which, truth be told, if you do an internal mantra for yourself, it always kind of helps, or it always kinds of helps, like repeat repeating yourself like that in your mind, um kind of just being like, hey, like, you can do it, you can do this, you can do that, you can do this, you can do that. And it always helps sometimes, just kind of like repeating to yourself in your mind, like, say for example, you have a test coming up, and just being like, I'm going to ace that test. I'm going to ace that test. 9 times out of 10, you are going to ace that test. Um, and when I was in therapy, like, many, many years ago, um, I've always had that person or persons saying that, you know, um, whatever you say to yourself, you've always got to think about it positively. And I've always thought, if you say something positive about yourself, it makes you feel better about yourself. And sometimes nowadays, sometimes some people don't even have that. Like, some people don't even have that mom or that dad or that brother or sister, aunt, uncle, grandmama, to tell them like, hey, like, you look good today, or you look beautiful today, or whatever. Because then there's always that one person that's always going to be a negative Nancy, and just kind of make you feel shitty. Um, and I've always had that part of myself that always think, like, okay, like, well, am I still enough for somebody? And lately, I've always come to the conclusion, like, yes, I am perfect for somebody, but it's just not right now. And kind of just, going with the flow, that's all you can do sometimes. Um, but yeah, so you just gotta think about positive internal mantras, and if you like positive internal mantras, go listen to If You Only Knew. So, going back onto the breakdown here. Sorry for that tangent. Um, Song number 6, Spit Shine. Um, there is a music video for this. I haven't watched it yet, but it says it's filled with zombies, which I love zombies. But the virtual metaphor for the song for aging and disappointment is complicated or complemented by the song's lyrics, which explore themes of self awareness, resilience, and the acceptance of life's imperfections. True. Um, might have to look at that, music video after this. Um, but it's like going back to If You Only Knew, life's not perfect. And if you kind of just go about it that way, and just accepting that you yourself might not be perfect, but that doesn't mean your whole life is not gonna be perfect. Because we struggle with internal hardships every single day, like between work, school, loved ones, like relationships. And I've always, like I've said in If You Only Knew, I've always been that person that is like, I will try to face a conflict head on. And it's like, if I can't resolve that conflict, I'll put it on the back burner. I'll come back to it another day. Because life is too short for somebody to be like, well, shit, like, I'm not going to get that job, or I'm not going to, get this, get that. And it's like, you have your whole life ahead of you to focus on that negative stuff. Focus on the here and now because, like it says, it says explores themes of self awareness, resilience, and acceptance of life's imperfections. So if you are self aware and you're resilient and you accept that life's not perfect, there you go. You have already been 3 steps ahead of everybody that, is 2 or 3 steps behind you. Um, so, in terms of the song rating, I gave this song an 8 out of 10, only because I might re listen to it just for not conflict purposes, but just for a self reflection uh, a point, or self reflection of yourself. Um, so, that song was actually really good. It is actually really good. So, going on to song number 7. Number 7. It is unconditional. Um, and from what I can read here, it says it opens right there in that fog, where the body hurts and the mind won't go if of something that it can't fully name. Foo Fighters don't dramatize it; they just sit in it. So it's saying like the body keeps a score. Like one of the lyrics is saying like like can't shake what's on my mind. I'm just not sure. It's saying like the narrator isn't recovering from something physical. It's just they're sore from sleeping, which means rest isn't working, and then whatever is weighing on them has gotten into their bones. Which I mean that's very fair. That's very fair. Um, and talking about like letting the paradox breathe, like saying that the outro repeats the bridge without adding anything new, and that's exactly right. Some things don't need elaboration. The song ends on the same beautiful contradiction that it introduced, letting it settle rather than explain it away. After all that searching for the right words, the final word that words have a ceiling anyway. What's being offered doesn't fit in tight conditions. Conditions. Jeez. It says, unconditional starts in the body, in ache and sleeplessness, in a mind stuck on something that it can't name. And it ends in a commitment that dissolves any qualifier it ever placed on itself. The song never resolves the uncertainty in verse 1, it just decides that the uncertainty Doesn't matter. That's a harder, more honest version of love that certainty would ever be. True. It is very, very true. It's like they unconditional love, that thing. Um, I gave this song an 8.5 out of 10. Um, I mean, we're still kind of keeping with the high, octane central theme here. Because with your favorite toy, it's still kind of for me at least. But with after your favorite toy, it starts to kind of go uphill a little bit, but kind of goes downhill a little bit, but then brings it back up. I mean, you probably know what I mean. So on to song number 8. It is Child Actor. Child actor uses the metaphor of a child performer to explore identity loss and the phys- psychological effects of living for external approval. So basically, kind of like if you think about like child actors, some of them are born into that that industry. Because like if they go on like talk shows or make a musical performance or something like that, it's like those parents have high standards for them and what they want them to do in the meantime. But then you have some people that are like gung ho, like this is what they're going to be doing for the rest of their life, sort of thing. But the central theme of it, it says portrays the erosion of personal identity that occurs when someone spends their life performing for others, using the metaphor of a child actor to illustrate this experience. It is not about a literal career in acting, but rather a psychologically where self-worth is eternally dependent on external validation. It says the lyrics ask whether if the performance ended, anyone including oneself, would recognize the real person behind the act. Man, that's a lot of child actors nowadays too, because a lot of those people, I mean, not a lot of them, but a lot of those childhood actors, though they show up on set and it's like they don't have a normal life. Like they don't go to school like the rest of us. They don't have they go to the set, do their thing, and then after that, it's like boom. It's like they go on home, and they don't have a normal life outside of that. Like I said, because they don't go to school, they don't go hang out with people, they don't go to parties, they don't have a social life outside of their, you know, childhood actor persona. Which is sad. It's sad to think about it like that because when I had listened to Jeanette McCurdy's audiobook, I'm Glad My Mom Died, it was saying that, she was kind of shoehorned in to being like that. And when she was 13 or 14, all that stuff, 13, 14, 15, somewhere in there, with Dan Schneider, and kind of trying to make sure that she is, good for, life, trying to make sure, she doesn't, step on any eggshells and make the director unhappy and all, and lose her job and all that stuff. And I'm glad that she's doing better now. Despite, through all the hardships and troubleships and dealing with her stupid mother and all that stuff. I'm glad she's doing better for herself. Um, just, kind of just take a step back and just enjoy what you have while you're young because not every childhood actor is meant to cut out for that shit, man. Because there's a lot of childhood actors that they say, they've made it, but then, they don't get used for those kinds of roles anymore. Which is, still sad. Um, I gave child actor an 8.5 out of 10. Just to clarify there. On to track number 9, the semi main event here, if you want to put it in wrestling terms. Amen, Caveman. Try to say that 5 times fast. No, try to say that 5 times fast. Um, so this one actually surprised me a little bit. I thought this one was kind of a sleeper hit a little bit. I would say Child Actor is a good sleeper hit too. Um, but this one critiques modern society's complacency, depicting civilization's collapse as both inevitable and passively accepted. Um, are we looking into the future here, like Raven? So this portrays a society numbed by distractions, lies, and simulations, where people fail to recognize the slow erosion of civilization. The song frames this collapse not as a sudden disaster, but as a quiet, cynical regression, suggesting that humanity repeatedly falls down to zero and returns to a primitive caveman state. The title itself infuses amen, symbolizing submission or reverence, with caveman, representing regression, implying that society is not resisting its decline, but almost uh, considering it. Considering it, yeah, considering it. Um, I mean, truth be told, like that's kind of how it is sometimes nowadays. Um, but if you want to think about it in this three-act structure thing, so the diagnosis is like, first verse identifies a generation being euthanized within constructed reality or simulation, kept passive and unaware of the dangers around them. Exposure. As a second act, calls out the deceivers, highlighting lies broadcast to the public and the visible damage caused by those in power. And then the third, collapse cycle. The final act depicts society's return to a primitive baseline, accepting regression as an inevitable, with the course reinforcing that the cynical nature of collapse through the mantra "down to zero, amen, caveman." I mean, not gonna lie, it's kind of speaking some facts here. They're kind of speaking some facts here. Um, as an overall rating for this song, I give it an 8 out of 10. I think I might have to listen to it a little bit more to maybe get a good feel for it too. Um, it's not a bad song in any sense of that word, but I think it kind of dipped down a little bit for me. Like I said, roller coaster effect. Um, it's not a bad song. Like I said, it's not a bad song, but I think over time, if you give it more time, I think it'll kind of reach that pinnacle a little bit. So, on to the last and final track of this album, Asking for a Friend. I hear this song on the radio a lot, but it's still a good hit for me. So, Asking for a Friend explores grief, hope, and the search for meaning, using the familiar phrase as a metaphor for vulnerability and reflection. So, the song captures a deeply emotional and introspective moment for the Foo Fighters, reflecting on loss, resilience, and the human need for clarity. Central to the lyrics is a repeated question: what is real? I'm asking for a friend, or is this the end? So, for me, I've always think about Taylor Hawkins, or Dave's mother that had passed away. Um, it's always that reflecting on loss thing. But I think they kind of did it perfectly with "But Here We Are," like 3 years ago. Because I mean, there's a lot of people that still think about Taylor and Dave's mom, from 3 years ago. Um, so, um, the line itself, what is real? I'm asking for a friend, or is this the end? Embodies a search for truth and understanding after hardship, while the phrase asking for a friend serves as a shield for personal vulnerability, allowing the speaker to pose difficult questions indirectly while expressing genuine uncertainty and longing for connection. So then the inspiration and context behind it is, Dave described the song as a tribute to those who have waited patiently in the cold, relying on hope and faith for their horizon to appear, emphasizing the struggle to find proof or reassurance during difficult times. And then it says the track was influenced by personal and band experiences, including the deaths of longtime drummer Taylor Hawkins and Grohl's mother in 2022, which shaped the song's themes of grief and renewal. Grohl also shared a personal anecdote about waiting to see Mount Fuji through the clouds, likening it to a test of faith, which mirrors the song's exploration of patience and hope. Um, Musically, Asking for a Friend balances arena-ready rock energy with atmospheric passages. I almost had to rethink about that real quick. allowing the emotional weight of the lyrics to resonate without being overshadowed by instrumentation. The song features Ian Rubin on drums, which he was the drummer for Nine Inch Nails, who's pulsively propulsively playing pulsively playing adds a sense of urgency and intensity, building towards a climactic release that mirrors the emotional joy of the lyrics. Then, overall, the song is open to interpretation, but it broadly addresses the themes of vulnerability, emotional darkness, and the search for meaning. It resonates with listeners who have experienced uncertainty or loss, offering a sense of shared reflection and consolation. The phrase asking for a friend functions both as a metaphor for indirect self inquiry and a gentle invitation for empathy, making the song both personal and universally relatable. Gosh, man, like that's so freaking true. That is so true. Um, I mean, I gave that song a 10 out of 10. I mean, like many years ago, uh, I've talked about my friends on this channel. But the one that still kind of gets close to home for me is my good buddy Zane, who has been um, you know passed away for a few years now. And every time I always talk or think about him, it it always it always makes me think about if he was still here, like would he still be doing the same thing. I remember, I don't know, like a few weeks ago, I went on my messenger. I just looked at, his message, and I was talking to him about like a job when I was still up in Tennessee at the time. And I played an audio that he had sent me a few, like, when I was still up there. And it was him playing, his guitar. And he's always loved playing his guitar when he would just, just play it, just to play it. Um, and I still think about him, to this day. I've always think some of my friends that have, passed away or moved on or passed on, I always think of them as, guardian angels. I've always think about them as guardian angels, and guardian angels are always on my side. Are always on my side, and and it's always good to have that guardian angel backup protection, thing. Um, because it makes you, think about, your life as a whole. Um, so as the whole breakdown of your favorite toy, before I even did this episode, I tallied up all the scores from all 10 songs. I and I, you know, got a number divided by that many songs, and I got an 84. That is a low grade B. um, and I mean, it's not the best Foo Fighters album in the world, but I think like after But Here We Are, it kind of just fell off a cliff a little bit. Um, it's still in the route of experiencing loss and trying to find your faith in things again, trying to find hope in things again, dealing with like grief and loss, uh you know vulnerability and all that stuff, and reflections and all that stuff. um and I always think that if Taylor wasn't gone, I think it would have been I think it would be a solid enough album for them. But like Taylor Hawkins, that was a tough pill to swallow for them, and especially Dave's mom, because like that was a 1-2 combo for Dave and the band too. Um, and they had to bring in Josh Freeze from yesteryear to come in and kind of help play drums and all that stuff for like a cup of coffee. And then they got Ian Rubin from Nine Inch Nails to come in to help out. I think he did a pretty good job on this album. I mean, it's not like, Taylor Hawkins or anything, but, nobody is gonna try to compare themselves to Taylor Hawkins. Like, there would be no way. Because there's only one Taylor Hawkins in this world. Um, but I think that there is room for improvement in the near future when they do if they do come out with some new stuff next year or 2 years from now. Um, I would say maybe kind of like I know they did like a best of back in the day, but like if they did a best of their stuff like current day stuff, like I don't think there will be much songs on it, like current day stuff. I still think like the best Foo Fighters album for me in terms of like overall like topics wise, I would say is Wasting Light for me. Um, but like I said, like Dave, they did this in his garage, and it didn't really feel like a regular studio recording for Foo Fighters. Um, and also this album was like half hour, maybe 40 minutes long. It was not a long album. Which I mean, truth be told, like I don't really give a shit, like if it's an hour or so, but it's like, it's like it's Foo Fighters, Um, but I think all in all, it's like it's a good album. Like if you want to like listen to it on your own time, or just pick and choose songs from that album and all that stuff. If I had to pick a favorite song of mine from this album, I would say "Asking for a Friend." Like that's usually like a good one. Um, I'd say if it's the least song that I didn't really like, I would say maybe "Unconditional," maybe. But I mean, that's just like me being nitpicky for this, but yeah, that was actually a good breakdown of like current day, like Foo Fighters and all stuff. But if you made it to the very end of this video, we really do appreciate it. And if you like what we do, please consider subscribing and turn on those notifications. Um, if you want to follow us on any social media platforms, there will be a link in the link tree description down in the description below, which will take you to the link tree page that has our Instagram pages, Twitter pages, the podcast Reddit page is on there, my gaming YouTube channel is on there. At the current time of this recording, I think I'm at I'm over 2370 on the road to 2400. And tonight's song of the night, I am going to do "Asking for a Friend," which I mean, self-explanatory. I mean, why not? And that is it. And I will see you guys next Thursday.